Oh, Dark Souls. The trials faced, the accomplishments made, all the progress, fun, and stress I had. I remember the one time I beat that boss and it was awesome. I love Dark Souls. I hope you're feeling positive because this is the Introverted Positron and welcome to another episode of Tips Gaming Philosophy, where we talk about the philosophy hidden away in the games we play every day. Now, today is a very special episode because we're going to be talking about the first game I ever Let's Played on this channel, and that was Dark Souls. Now, for every other episode of this so far, I have focused on the lore of a game to explain the philosophy that it conveys. Today, I'm not going to be doing that. Today, I'm going to be focusing on the mechanics in Dark Souls to explain the philosophy. The reason I'm doing this is because games are an interactive medium. So generally speaking, I want to focus on the game's interaction to talk about the philosophy that the game conveys, and unfortunately most games don't do that. But thankfully Dark Souls is an exception. So look forward to hearing how Dark Souls' mechanics convey an interesting and important philosophical concept. Now, for those who don't really know Dark Souls all that well, it is basically a very challenging game where you are guaranteed to die in your quest to beat and potentially master the game. Now, I'm going to leave it there for now because it's way more complicated than that, and we're going to get more into those details later when I'm getting more into the philosophy that the game conveys. So, a little bit later. Anyway, an often argued topic in philosophy is the idea of human nature. If we were left to our own devices with no influences, how would we act? Now, this topic can get kind of dark at times, but ultimately there are lots of ideas and logic that support many points of view. In fact, I think we'll probably be covering a lot of those different points of view in later episodes. I'm not even saying that because I know when. It's just that human nature is such a common topic in video games that I wouldn't be surprised if we had lots of opportunities to talk about more topics in this category later on. Anyway, for today, we're going to be focusing on John Locke's view of human nature, and that is summed up in two very Greek words, tabula rasa, which means blank slate. So when John Locke was referring to human nature as being a tabula rasa, he was basically saying that human nature isn't set. So when we are born, we have no prior knowledge of how to do basically anything, and so we have to experience it to learn it or be taught it to learn it. To give an analogy that is somewhat relatable, let's say you enter a shop, a pizza shop. Now, in the shop, you've never had this pizza before, so you have to try it first to know if you like it. So let's say you want to try Hawaiian or pepperoni or whatever. Either way, you wouldn't really know if you liked one or the other or really anything at all. Not that disliking pizza is really a possibility. But that is essentially what it is. Of course, John Locke was not only referring to pizza, but to everything when he referred to human nature as tabula rasa. Except, of course, we know that that's not completely true because genetics basically state that we do know certain things when we are born. We know how to function and whatnot without really ever being taught. But when it comes to more complex ideas and actions, John Locke's idea certainly seems possible. Dark Souls extends the idea of tabula rasa to its world and mechanics. When you start off the game, you are in an undead asylum as an undead prisoner, and a stranger frees you to basically allow you to go into the world and discover a greater purpose. Now, when you start off, you don't really know very much. You don't know really how to fight, you don't know much about your character, what stats really do. Really, you're left with almost nothing. But as you progress through the asylum, there are messages that show you basic things like menu management and basic combat. But the thing is that even then, you still don't know really a ton about the game's hidden skills and stats, but that's beside the point. Anyway, using these messages and the equipment that you get through at the asylum, you eventually can beat the boss of the asylum and leave. Once you're into the game's main world, things are a little less clear. You don't really know what to do or where to go. The NPCs can point you in the right direction, generally speaking, But really, ultimately, it is up to your skill as a player and the knowledge that you have of this world in order for you to move forward. Now, in this world also, there are messages similar to the ones in the Asylum that can help to guide you. The thing about these messages, though, is that most of them are left by other players, and they can sometimes fool or even kill you. The cleverer thing about these messages is that they help to make the tutorial messages in the Asylum seem a little less out of place. Those two now seem like messages from another world, just ones that are more inclined to guide you than normal. The only reason I wouldn't say that every game conveys tabula rasa is because even though they have mechanics that are introduced in creative ways and do have hidden mechanics, is because of the way it's executed. Most games will usually do one of two things. Either they'll introduce a mechanic to you and they'll expect you to repeat the command and use it in a particular situation, or it will force you into a situation where you learn it without even realizing it. Now, in either case, though, they present you with a situation where you need that skill to get by, and where you basically are forced to learn it. And in relative safety, where you won't really die too much, where it's not going to be a frustrating situation. The game seeks to make you more confident by giving you repeated victories with a skill, instead of forcing you to learn through your defeats. Now, Dark Souls does not do this. Dark Souls teaches you in two different ways. One is through experimentation, the other is by learning through other sources, such as other players or outside sources. Now, in the case of experimentation, every weapon, skill, and magic has to be experimented with to be understood, and that experimentation can often get you killed, but you ultimately learn something new. Even when it comes to armor sets and rings, the abilities are often unclear until you are given a specific situation where its abilities are revealed. Now, basically what this does is it forces you into situations where whenever you are doing something different, you will have to discover the strengths and weaknesses of whatever you are doing. It's from learning in the game through interactions. It's usually in two ways. One is through the messages that are left, which can often give you tips on how to beat specific groups of enemies and bosses, or they can lead you off an edge. It really seems random sometimes. Or you can learn through your interactions directly with other players when you're invaded or when you summon them. Basically, anytime you're fighting with another player, you can learn by watching what they do and discovering new skills and abilities that you weren't necessarily aware of before. You can learn from outside sources how to play Dark Souls. The internet is a very useful resource when it comes to playing Dark Souls because the game has so many little hidden secrets that ultimately you wouldn't really be able to find without looking at outside sources. Even when it comes to things like stat distribution, the internet can be very useful to understand these things as it's not really well explained in the game. Now, this doesn't really take away from the experience that much because even if you look at something such as skills or how to be a boss, ultimately you still have to learn how to execute these things through the experimentation that you would require either way. All it does is it helps you to move forward a little bit faster. Even when I was playing, I had some issues and had to look things up, and I regretted those experiences. But looking back, I don't regret it as much because I probably wouldn't have had as much fun playing the game if I hadn't, and my experience wouldn't have been as enriched as it was. Ultimately, I don't regret it that much. Although, when I do future playthroughs of Dark Souls' sequels, I'll definitely try to refrain from looking up things as much as possible. Now, the point of all this may seem a little unclear, but I'm just trying to draw parallels between Dark Souls and real life. If we are born a blank slate, then just like in Dark Souls, we are not born with everything we need to survive. We have to rely on the experiences of others and our own experiences in order to get through life fully. Dark Souls, instead of giving us everything we need, assumes that we know nothing and actually often throws that in our face instead of spoon-feeding us victories. Interesting is that Dark Souls decides to accent this idea even further with the idea of humanity. It's only when you are human that you are able to interact with others and learn from others. It's interesting that saying that you basically had to be human to not just learn from your own actions, but from the actions of those around you. It's even more interesting when you start to look at the fact that when you go hollow, it can basically be interpreted as when you give up on the game and basically leave the world of Dark Souls forever. So Dark Souls is a game that demonstrates the idea of John Locke's that human nature is tabula rasa, that we have to start as a blank slate and move forward and learn constantly, or else suffer the consequences of ignorance. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you're looking for more of this content, of course I'll leave links to the other 2 episodes I've done for this series so far. If you want to leave any suggestions for games that you want to see featured in this part of the channel, just leave them in the comments or wait until the future. I don't have to play it to have it here. That's just the trend I've been having so far. So anyway, on that note, thanks everyone for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. Helps with the channel, helps me, of course, as long as you like the content. So thank you again. Have a great day, and remember to keep positive. Bye.